Imagine paying your top employees a premium salary, only to find out they spend 20 hours a week just copying and pasting text between different software tabs.
Yeah.
Like half their working lives, just completely vaporized by the very tools you bought to make them productive.
Right. It's brutal.
And for most enterprise tech teams and support centers today, that is not some nightmare scenario. That is literally just Tuesday.
It really is. I mean, it's the great paradox of the modern workplace. We have more specialized software right now than at any point in human history, and yet somehow the actual friction of just getting through a single workday has never been higher.
Exactly. And whether you're prepping for a massive tech strategy meeting or trying to make sense of enterprise software budgets, or you're just insanely curious about how AI is actually changing business behind the scenes, you are in the right place.
Definitely.
We are diving deep into a single, just phenomenal source today. It's an article from Entrepreneur UK from May 2026, and it's titled The Great Rebundling: How AI is Changing the Fragmented Customer Support Stack.
Such a good piece.
It really is. And our mission today is to tear down 2 decades of what the industry calls Frankenstein software solutions. We're going to examine why firing humans to replace them with chatbots spectacularly blew up in companies' faces.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Right. And then explore this totally new intelligence-first architecture that is basically turning dead customer data into a living, breathing nervous system. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because the core problem facing every modern enterprise right now feels like a massive self-inflicted wound.
It is entirely self-inflicted, but, well, to be fair, it happened by accident over 20 years.
Right. Nobody planned it this way.
Exactly. If you really want to understand the psychological and financial toll of how we manage customer relationships, you have to look at the ground reality of the worker. The article paints this just brutal picture of the modern customer support agent.
Yeah, we think of them as just like typing in a chat box all day.
Right, but the reality is they are toggling between 4 to 10 different tools per interaction.
Okay, let's visualize that. Because 10 tools to answer one question sounds completely absurd. Walk me through what that actually looks like for the person doing the work.
Sure. So a customer reaches out, the agent gets the ping. Tool number 1 is the telephony or live chat platform where the actual conversation is happening.
Okay, simple enough.
But that platform doesn't know who the customer is.
Right.
So the agent opens tool number 2. That's the CRM, the customer relationship management system, just to look up the account.
Just to know who they're talking to.
Exactly. Then they need to log the specific issue, which requires tool number 3. That's usually a ticketing system like Jira or Zendesk.
So we are at 3 tools just to say hello and write down the problem.
And we're just getting started. So say the agent needs to answer a technical question. They have to open tool number 4, which is the internal knowledge base.
Okay.
But maybe there's a known bug, so they check tool number 5, an engineering portal. Meanwhile, management is monitoring everything. So tool number 6 is a quality assurance platform tracking their response time. Tool number 7 is a coaching app that, nudges them if they forget an upsell pitch.
That's exhausting just to hear.
And sitting on top of all of this, like a cherry on a terrible sundae, is tool number 8. A bolted-on analytics layer for the executives to try and somehow make sense of this disjointed mess.
It's just complete cognitive overload. And what the article points out, which I think is the truly maddening part, is that the agent is the manual integration layer between all these systems.
Yes, they are the human API.
Right. They literally take a note in the telephony app, highlight it, copy it, and paste it into the ticketing system. They grab an account ID from the CRM and paste it into the knowledge base. It is a completely cobbled together ecosystem.
And the article calls the financial burden of the CRM tax?
The CRM tax. Yeah, let's talk about the money. Because the global CRM market was valued at about $101 billion back in 2024, and it's projected to hit over $250 billion by 2032.
But look at what is actually driving that growth.
Right.
It isn't necessarily that companies are serving twice as many customers or delivering twice the value. A huge chunk of that spending is companies just layering more and more specialized tools onto their already overcrowded stacks.
Let's make that CRM tax tangible for a second. The QuickBase report cited in the article drops this devastating statistic. They found that nearly 70% of workers spend more than 20 hours a week just managing fragmented systems.
20 hours.
Half their week. If you're a manager listening to this, think about your own tech stack right now. Let's do the math on that. If you are paying an employee $100,000 a year and they spend half their time fighting with different software tabs, you are setting $50,000 on fire per employee. per year.
It's staggering.
Multiply that by a support center with 1,000 reps. That is $50 million a year just evaporating into the friction between software platforms.
And the craziest part is that $50 million doesn't even show up on a spreadsheet as a loss.
Wait, how does $50 million not show up?
Because it's an invisible tax. Think about it. The CFO looks at the budget and what they see. They see the VP of support justifying the ticketing system because, well, it tracks bugs.
Right.
They see the VP of sales justifying the CRM because it tracks revenue. Each leader looks at their specific silo, sees the tool doing its narrow job, and approves the line item.
So nobody is actually looking at the whole picture.
Nobody is responsible for calculating the friction between the silos. It's just accepted as the cost of doing business.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. For the last 20 years, every tech analyst, every major consulting firm told us that best-in-class point solutions are the only way to build software.
Oh, absolutely. That was the gospel.
Right. The whole philosophy was that monolithic suites were slow and terrible, so you should buy the absolute best specialized chat tool, the absolute best specialized phone tool, and then just tie them together with APIs. Why is having specialized tools suddenly a structural failure? It sounds like, we've given a chef 10 different kitchens to cook one meal. Like one kitchen for chopping the vegetables, one entirely separate kitchen across the street for boiling the water, one for plating the food. And then we're standing around wondering why the food is always late and cold.
That chef analogy perfectly illustrates the mechanical flaw. Because while each individual kitchen might have state-of-the-art, best-in-class equipment, the physical act of transporting the ingredients across the street destroys the dish.
It takes too much time.
Exactly. And in the enterprise world, moving the ingredients means moving the data.
Right.
And the reason moving the data is so destructive comes down to the underlying architecture. We really have to talk about the SQL-era to understand this.
Okay, let's get into the plumbing.
Yeah.
We hear SQL database all the time, but why is that specifically the bottleneck here?
So SQL Structured Query Language is a programming language used for managing relational databases. The dominant CRMs and ticketing platforms of the last 20 years were built entirely on this architecture. At their core, they are just massive static relational databases with a pretty user interface slapped on top.
Right.
They excel at rows and columns. You want to store a name in one column, a billing zip code in another, and a contract renewal date in a third. A SQL database is perfect.
Meaning they're basically just highly secure, glorified spreadsheets.
Glorified spreadsheets, that's exactly what they are. But human reality, and especially customer reality, does not fit into a row and a column.
No, it's messy.
Very messy. A relational database completely fails when it comes to capturing nuance. A cell in a spreadsheet cannot capture the emotional undertone of a frustrated email.
Yeah, there's no column for angry.
Right. It cannot comprehend the broader business context of a complex enterprise support conversation or the fact that a customer used a very specific exasperated tone of voice on a 30-minute phone call. It just stores dead data points.
Which naturally leads us to the industry's first desperate attempt to fix this operational nightmare. When executives finally started realizing that their support centers were bloated, slow, and hemorrhaging that invisible CRM tax, what did they do?
They panicked.
They threw generative AI at it. And according to the article, they did it in entirely the wrong way.
Completely the wrong way. The initial reaction to the generative AI boom was just a frantic dash for efficiency. But efficiency was defined entirely as cost-cutting.
Right. Companies tried to automate away the problem. The article points out that the strategy to replace human support agents with AI largely backfired.
It was a disaster for a lot of brands.
We've seen high-profile tech companies, telecom giants, make massive headlines for firing their support staff, replacing them with chatbots, and then, 6 months later, quietly scrambling to rehire those contact center workers because customer satisfaction absolutely tanked.
Just fell off a cliff.
So why did it fail so badly? The source describes what they build as session-based LLM wrappers.
Yeah, we need to unpack the mechanics of a session-based wrapper because it explains the failure perfectly.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine you have that static SQL-era relational database, your giant filing cabinet.
Got the filing cabinet in my head.
A company buys access to a generative AI model and basically glues a chat window to the front of the filing cabinet. It is session-based, meaning the AI only turns on when a human initiates a session.
So a customer goes to the website, types a prompt into a chat window, and that action wakes the AI up.
Yes. The AI wakes up, goes into the filing cabinet, tries to match the keywords in the customer's prompt to a past article or ticket, generates a response, and then goes back to sleep.
And according to the text, these wrappers require extensive human oversight and are highly prone to hallucinations.
Exactly.
And let's dig into why. They hallucinate or make things up because they don't actually understand the context of the business, right?
Exactly.
They're just guessing what word statistically comes next based on the incredibly narrow slice of data they just looked at in that specific session.
That is the mechanical limitation. A session-based AI has amnesia by design.
Amnesia by design. I like that.
If it only wakes up when a prompt is typed, it completely misses the macro picture. Let me give you a practical example.
Please.
You cannot predict a customer's churn risk like their likelihood of canceling $1 million contract if your AI only looks at a 5-minute chat session about a password reset.
Because it's isolated.
Right. The AI doesn't know that this same customer had a terrible onboarding experience 2 years ago, or that their usage of your software has dropped by 40% over the last 6 months, or that they've had 3 unresolved engineering tickets this quarter. It only knows what is in the immediate chat window.
This raises what I think is the most painful irony in this entire deep dive. Companies tried to fire the humans to save money, completely failing to realize that the human beings were the only glue holding their broken software ecosystem together.
Yeah.
The human agent was the actual integration layer. The human was the one reading the angry tone in an email, opening a second tab to cross-reference a billing delay in the CRM, and synthesizing those 2 disparate facts to realize, oh, this customer isn't just asking a technical question, they are furious and about to cancel their contract.
That's the human superpower.
Right. The human was compensating for the fact that the tools couldn't talk to each other. When you fire the human and put a session-based AI in their place, the entire illusion of a cohesive system just shatters.
It does. The human mind is naturally built for that kind of ambient synthesis. We connect the dots across different contexts seamlessly.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the true structural question the article poses. This raises an important question. The debate shouldn't be about who is doing the work, human versus machine.
What should it be about?
The debate is about how the work itself is structured. If bolting an AI onto a static filing cabinet doesn't work, then we have to question which layers of that traditional fragmented software stack are still necessary at all.
Okay, so if the filing cabinet is obsolete, we need a totally new metaphor. If we want to actually fix the problem, we have to move from a filing cabinet to a nervous system.
A nervous system, yes.
And that brings us to the core architectural shift happening in the enterprise right now. The source lays out a new ambient AI architecture that forward-thinking companies are adopting, and it's broken down into 3 elegant layers. Let's dive into layer 1, the unified data foundation.
This is where the landscape is fundamentally shifting. Instead of buying another point solution, adding tool number 11 to the stack, enterprises are pulling their center of gravity down to the data layer itself. The text mentions platforms like Snowflake or Databricks.
Right, and for those who aren't in the data engineering weeds, these are essentially massive, highly scalable cloud data warehouses. But what does a unified data foundation actually do mechanically?
It means instead of having your data trapped in 10 different tools, you pipe absolutely everything into one central lake. Everything. Every voice call recording, every chat log, every email thread, telemetry data from how the customer uses your product, billing signals, marketing interactions, all of it flows into one place.
Okay, but isn't that just a massive mess?
It would be if it was just dumped there like a digital landfill.
Yeah.
But the critical mechanism here is normalization.
Let's unpack normalization, because that sounds like corporate jargon, but it's actually the linchpin of this whole operation. What does it actually mean to normalize text, audio, and product telemetry?
Think of it like bringing diplomats from 20 different countries into a room. If they all speak different languages, you have chaos. Nobody understands anyone.
Right.
Normalization is translating everyone into a universal language so they can finally interact. Mechanically, a telephony system stores data differently than an email system. Normalization strips away those proprietary formatting silos.
Okay, so it standardizes everything.
Exactly. It standardizes the timestamps, the customer IDs, and the metadata so that a voice transcript from Tuesday perfectly aligns with the billing error from Wednesday.
Got it. So once you have that unified normalized foundation, you can build layer 2, the intelligence layer. And this is where the magic happens, because this layer is not session-based. It is ambient.
Ambient is the keyword. The intelligence layer sits directly on top of that unified data lake and continuously runs predictive models and large language models against the data stream.
Continuously.
Yes. It is not waiting for a customer to type a prompt. It is constantly churning, continuously looking at the background noise of all those interactions.
It's actively mining for abstract concepts, right?
Yeah.
It's looking for signals like frustration, urgency, confusion, or loyalty risk.
Exactly.
Let's take that a step further, though. How does an AI mathematically identify frustration? Because it's not just looking for curse words, is it?
Far from it. It looks at linguistic patterns, hesitation markers in transcribed audio, the velocity of messages.
Velocity of messages, like how fast they reply.
Yeah. If a customer who normally emails once a month suddenly sends 3 emails in 2 days, and the sentence structure becomes shorter and more direct, the intelligence layer tags that as escalating urgency.
Wow. And this leads directly to layer 3, the orchestration layer. Once the intelligence layer detects those subtle signals, the orchestration layer acts as the muscle.
The muscle, yes.
It translates the signal into action. But how does that actually work in practice? How does it physically intervene?
Let's say the intelligence layer detects a high level of frustration in an ongoing email thread. The orchestration layer can instantly route that specific case away from a junior agent and send it directly to a specialized retention expert, alongside a summary of why the customer is frustrated.
Before the customer even asks for a manager.
Exactly. Or, more impressively, it can intervene in real time. Say an agent is on a live VoIP phone call with a customer. The audio is being transcribed and analyzed ambiently.
In the background.
In the background. If the customer starts exhibiting high churn signals based on their tone, the orchestration layer can physically interrupt the agent's workflow by popping a notification onto their screen saying, this customer is showing severe defection risk based on their tone and past billing history. Offer them this specific concession right now.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's the difference between a filing cabinet and a nervous system.
Yes, exactly that.
A filing cabinet. The old SQL way only works when you physically walk up to it, open a drawer, and actively look for a specific folder. It's completely reactive. You have to know what you're looking for.
Right.
A nervous system, this ambient AI architecture, is proactive. A nervous system tells your brain your hand is too close to the fire before you even realize it's hot.
That's a great way to put it.
It operates continuously in the background, like a human subconscious monitoring the body's vitals. It doesn't wait for the customer to file a ticket saying, I'm angry. It reads the subtle cues across their last 5 interactions and alerts the business, hey, this account is heating up. You need to intervene now.
And that contrast is the defining characteristic of this entire software revolution.
Right.
For 20 years, enterprise software has been overwhelmingly reactive. You wait for the alarm bell to ring, the ticket to be filed, the angry tweet to be posted, and then you scramble to put out the fire.
Yeah, always on the defensive.
But if your intelligence layer is ambient, it spots the smoke before there is a fire. It completely changes the posture of the business from defensive to offensive.
To really grasp how powerful this is, we need to look at a real-world implementation. Not just theory, but a company that built this out of sheer personal frustration.
Yes, the VMware story.
Right. The article focuses heavily on a platform called SupportLogic and its founder, Krishna Raj Raja. His origin story perfectly encapsulates the loss of context we've been talking about.
His story is a classic enterprise tragedy of scale. Raja was the very first support engineer hired at VMware India. In those early startup days, because he was the only person handling the queue, he could physically read every single customer message.
He had the entire context of the business in his head.
Yes. He developed an incredible intimacy with the customer base. He could instinctively anticipate problems. He knew that if customer X asked about a specific database configuration, they were probably going to run into a server issue 2 weeks later because he had seen it before.
So he was an ambient intelligence layer of one.
Exactly. But then, VMware grew exponentially. They became a massive global enterprise with thousands of customers and hundreds of support agents.
And what happens? That intimacy is instantly destroyed. As you add hundreds of agents, the insights get buried in an avalanche of tickets. Managers can no longer read every message. They have to rely on high-level metrics and dashboards.
Which strips away all the nuance.
Right. They become reactive. And as a result, churn inevitably creeps up.
SupportLogic was Raja's answer to this specific structural pain point. His vision was to use AI to do at scale what a great support leader does instinctively.
Okay.
He wanted to build an intelligence layer that could read every message, understand the tone, and anticipate the problems just like he used to do when it was just him at a desk.
But implementing that sounds like an IT nightmare. I mean, if I'm a CIO and you tell me I need to migrate all my data from my 10 different specialized tools into a new unified system, I'm going to throw you out of my office.
Oh, without doubt.
Because rip and replace takes years and costs millions.
That is the genius of how SupportLogic and similar platforms are architected today. The article notes that they do not force a massive rip and replace. The platform operates as an overlay. It integrates, migrates, and normalizes the data schema without touching the source systems.
Let's drill into that phrase. Migrates the data schema without touching the source systems. How is that technically possible?
It uses APIs to continuously pull a copy of the data from the CRM, the ticketing system, and the chat logs in real time. It maps the schema, meaning it translates how Salesforce formats a contact into how Zendesk formats a contact, and builds that unified foundation in its own cloud environment.
Oh, okay.
So the old systems keep running exactly as they were, but now you have an omniscient intelligence layer sitting above them, watching everything. And more importantly, it illuminates what the article calls the dark channels.
The dark channels. I love this term. The text defines these as Zoom calls, telephony records, and Slack threads.
The hardest data to capture.
Right. If you think about it, these are the places where the actual messy human conversation happens, but they are completely invisible to a traditional CRM. A CRM might show that a 30-minute Zoom meeting took place, but it has no idea what was actually said.
None.
If you are only analyzing official support tickets, you are missing, 90% of the customer's actual sentiment?
At least 90%. Yeah. The real emotion doesn't live in a formally structured Zendesk ticket.
No one types, "I am slightly frustrated," into a ticket.
Right. It lives in the informal Slack chats. It lives in the frustrated sighs on a Zoom call. It lives in the long, awkward pauses before a customer answers a question on the phone.
Let me push back on this, though, because there is a natural skepticism here.
Sure.
If this system is pulling in data from every single dark channel, if it is reading every Slack thread between a customer and an engineer and analyzing the audio tone of every Zoom call, does that mean the AI genuinely knows the customer is angry before the human sales rep even realizes it?
In many complex enterprise scenarios, yes. And that is the real-time predictive power we're talking about. Imagine a sales rep gets off a Zoom call. They might think, that went okay. They asked a lot of tough technical questions, but we answered them.
Yeah, standard call.
But the AI, analyzing the raw transcript and the vocal sentiment markers, might recognize something else. It might recognize that the specific pattern of those technical questions, combined with the fact that the customer has had 3 unresolved support tickets in the last month, strongly correlates with the behavior of a customer who is actively evaluating a competitor.
Wait, really? It can connect those dots?
Yes. The AI recognizes the pattern of defection before the human rep processes the nuance.
That is mind-blowing. The AI connects the dots across departments. It sees the unresolved support ticket from engineering, hears the tone on the sales call, and flags the risk. We usually accept the loss of intimacy as an inevitable growing pain in business. We tell ourselves, well, we have 1 million customers now. Of course, we can't know them all personally.
It's just a given.
But this technology argues that you can achieve intimacy at scale. You just need an army to do it. And in this case, it's an army of specialized AI agents. Let's look at how this is mechanically executed.
The technological leap required to do this is massive. You cannot achieve this with one single monolithic AI model like ChatGPT.
Why not?
It would be too slow, too expensive, and too prone to errors to run continuously across billions of data points. The article details SupportLogic's cognitive AI cloud, which is actually a multi-agent system. It powers 10 purpose-built AI microagents.
Right. The text names a few of them. There's a sentiment agent specifically trained and optimized solely to detect emotion and urgency. There's an escalation agent trained to look at historical data and predict when a ticket is about to blow up into a massive executive crisis.
Exactly.
There's a coaching agent to help the human staff. And a knowledge agent that uses precision retrieval augmented generation, or BAG.
We should definitely explain what RAG is mechanically, because it is the foundational technology preventing AI from hallucinating in these enterprise settings.
Yes. How does RAG actually work? Because earlier we said session-based wrappers hallucinate because they are just guessing the next word. How does RAG fix that?
Retrieval augmented generation fundamentally changes how the AI fetches information. Instead of relying on the AI's internal pre-trained memory, which is where hallucinations happen, RAG connects the AI to a vector database of the company's verified documents.
Wait, let me stop you there. A vector database. How is that different from the SQL database we were trashing earlier?
Great question. A SQL database matches exact keywords. If you search for refund, it only finds documents with the exact word refund.
Okay.
A vector database converts words and concepts into numbers vectors in a high-dimensional space.
Sounds like sci-fi.
It does, but mathematically it maps the meaning of the text. So if a customer asks about getting my money back, the vector database knows that concept is mathematically close to refund, even if the actual word isn't used.
Oh, wow.
When a user asks a question, the RA system first searches the vector database for the factual, verified company documents related to that concept. It retrieves those specific paragraphs, hands them to the language model, and says, generate an answer using only this verified text.
So it forces the AI to operate like an open book test, rather than a closed book test where it has to guess.
Exactly. It completely anchors the response in reality. And because these 10 agents are processing billions of signals continuously using these precise methods, they completely change the user experience for the human workers.
How so?
The interface is no longer a complex dashboard of charts and SQL query boxes. The interface is just plain English.
The example quote from the text is a perfect illustration of this. A user can literally type into a search bar, "Show me all high churn risk accounts that have seen a 20% spike in frustration signals this month."
Let's break that natural language query down mathematically and technically.
Let's do it.
It sounds like a simple sentence, but to answer it instantly, the system has to perform multiple incredibly complex operations simultaneously.
Yeah, let's dissect it. First part, show me all high churn risk accounts.
To even know what a high churn risk account is, the system must have already run predictive modeling on the entire customer base. It had to analyze years of past behavior, who canceled, who renewed, to assign a real-time probability score of cancellation to every current account.
Okay, second part, that have seen a 20% spike.
This requires dynamic mathematical aggregation. The system has to look at the historical baseline of unstructured data for each specific account.
Unstructured data being the chats and calls.
Right. It has to know that account A normally expresses a baseline of, say, 5 units of frustration a month, and then calculate the real-time deviation from that specific line to see if it hit a 20% increase.
Third part, in frustration signals.
This relies entirely on the sentiment agent having already ambiently processed the raw text and audio from those dark channels, the Slack messages, the Zoom calls, and categorize the emotional state accurately into that vector space.
And finally, this month. It has to filter all of this dynamically by time. In the old world, in the Frankenstein stack, how long would it take a company to answer that one single question?
It would be a multi-week project.
Really?
Weeks.
Oh, easily. A VP would ask the question. A data engineer would have to write a complex SQL query just to pull the raw account list. A data scientist would have to build a custom churn model. A business analyst would have to calculate the month-over-month changes in Excel. And a QA team would have to manually read thousands of emails to guess at the frustration levels.
That's insane.
By the time they compiled the report 3 weeks later, half those accounts would have already canceled.
Now, a manager types it into a search bar and gets the answer instantly.
Instantly.
And this capability isn't just theoretical PowerPoint magic. The article points out that SupportLogic won the Best Use of AI award at the CX Awards 2025, beating out nearly 200 other entries evaluated by an expert panel. Why does the article make such a big deal out of an industry award?
Because the enterprise market right now is absolutely flooded with vaporware.
Oh, everybody has an AI pitch. Everyone has an AI pitch deck that looks incredible in a demo. But these claims rarely survive contact with enterprise reality. Real enterprise data is messy. It's full of typos, strange formatting, complex security permissions. Winning that award is a validation of execution. It proves the multi-agent architecture actually functions in the wild.
So what does this all mean for the people actually doing the jobs? For the listeners who manage teams or work in these systems? To me, it reflects a massive shift in human capital. We're moving from needing people to be database administrators to needing people to be investigators.
That's a great way to frame it.
If you want to pull insights from your company's data today, you don't need to know SQL code. You don't need to know how to navigate a labyrinth of tables and primary keys. You just need to know what questions to ask your business. You need curiosity, not coding skills.
That is a profound shift in the skills required for leadership. If the barrier to extracting insight drops to zero, if asking a complex predictive data question is as easy as talking to a colleague, then the competitive advantage shifts entirely. It goes to the person who has the domain expertise to ask the most creative, probing questions.
Which takes us to a fascinating philosophical argument. Because this incredible technological capability completely shifts how we need to think about the economics of AI. It's not just about doing the same old things faster. It's about doing things entirely differently.
Yes.
The article delves into the mindset required to actually succeed with this technology, drawing heavily on Krishna Raj Raja's book, Support Experience, how innovative companies use artificial intelligence to win the hearts, minds, and wallets of customers.
His philosophy is a direct challenge to the prevailing narrative in the corporate world right now.
Absolutely. The central thesis of his book directly attacks what I hear from almost every board of directors today. Most enterprises are looking at AI strictly through the lens of incremental efficiency. They say, an agent used to write an email in 5 minutes, now AI writes it in 1 minute. We saved 4 minutes of labor costs.
Right. And Raja argues that this strategy is actively dangerous. He says it is thinking too small.
His quote in the text is brilliant. A potential advantage emerges when you use AI to eliminate the process altogether and redesign the business around what's now possible.
What's fascinating here is how deeply counterintuitive this is for a traditional executive. When presented with automation, the immediate reflex is headcount reduction. How many salaries can I cut?
Always.
Raja argues that viewing AI as a cost-cutting tool is a trap. It must be viewed as a revenue-generating growth engine.
He lays out a compelling economic theory for this, which he calls the race to the bottom. Let's walk through that economic logic. Let's say you take the board's advice. You use AI just to reduce your operational costs. You automate away half your support staff, your margins improve massively for 1 quarter, and everyone celebrates. What happens next?
Well, eventually, your customers are going to realize that your service costs you almost nothing to provide. When their contract is up for renewal, they are going to demand that those cost savings be passed on to them in the form of massive discounts.
Because you haven't actually added any new value to the relationship. You've just become a cheaper, slightly faster version of yourself.
Exactly. And your competitors are doing the exact same thing. They buy the same AI wrappers, automate their staff, and drop their prices even lower to undercut you. Suddenly, you are locked in a death spiral of cost cutting. The product becomes a total commodity. That is the race to the bottom.
So the difference between efficiency and reinvention is literally the difference between survival and extinction in the AI era. Efficiency is using AI to do the old broken process faster. Reinvention is looking at the capability of the ambient AI and realizing the old process shouldn't exist at all. Instead of using AI to answer bug report tickets faster, use the ambient intelligence to identify the product flaw and push a fix to engineering before the customer even encounters it.
Exactly. Or use it to deliver highly personalized white glove support at a scale that was physically impossible when humans had to do the manual data entry.
It is the realization that the support organization is not a cost center to be minimized. In the SaaS world, where customers can leave at any time, support is the primary point of value creation for the existing customer base.
Yeah.
If you use AI to make that interaction richer rather than just faster, you drive measurable loyalty.
And the results back up the theory. The article shares the real-world impact of companies using the support experience, or SX framework. SupportLogic's own customers saw a 15% boost in retention and 10% higher renewals.
That is hard revenue growth.
Yes. That is protecting the bottom line by fundamentally improving the customer's reality, not by firing the staff.
Which brings us to the culmination of all these trends. This philosophy of reinvention, powered by this new ambient architecture, is driving a massive tectonic shift in the entire software industry. Analysts are calling it the Great Rebundling.
The Great Rebundling.
Let's define it. It's a structural consolidation of the enterprise software landscape. We talked at the beginning about how the SaaS era produced an absolute explosion of specialized tools.
Right.
Over the last 2 decades, every single narrow problem spawned a billion-dollar software company. You had a company just for chat, a company just for ticketing, a company just for QA. But AI is now collapsing those distinctions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we are witnessing the end of the cobbled ecosystem. In the past, you needed a different vendor for every task because software was fundamentally dumb. It was hard-coded to do one specific thing well. A ticketing system couldn't analyze audio sentiment.
It just couldn't.
But when you have a unified intelligence layer sitting on top of a governed data foundation, that single platform can dynamically replicate the functionality of a dozen specialized vendors.
It can act as the CRM, the ticketing system, the sentiment analyzer, the QA monitor, and the coaching tool, all at once, simply by applying different AI agents to the same pool of data.
So the ultimate strategic benefit here isn't just saving money on software licenses, although consolidating 12 vendors down to one will certainly streamline the IT budget. The real benefit is achieving an organization that genuinely, deeply knows its customers. Not by looking up a static record in a dead database, but by tuning into the living, breathing signal of every single conversation.
And that leads to the article's most powerful closing thought. In a world where AI can commoditize software features, where every company has access to the same foundational intelligence models, the same ability to write code instantly, what is the one thing you cannot buy or instantly replicate?
Customer loyalty.
Customer loyalty. The article emphasizes that customer loyalty is the scarcest resource in business today.
The companies that win the next decade won't be the ones with the most complex Frankenstein software stacks. They won't be the ones who fired the most people to hit a quarterly margin. They will be the ones that use a unified intelligence layer to cultivate, protect, and anticipate that loyalty most effectively.
For you listening right now, whether you're a CIO buying enterprise software, a founder building a startup, or just someone trying to navigate your career in this space, the takeaway is clear. The era of buying 5 different specialized tools to solve one single customer's problem is ending. The intelligence layer is the new stack.
It is a fundamental rewiring of how business operates. We are moving from systems of record to systems of intelligence.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the great rebundling. Thank you for sticking with us through this extensive exploration of how the Frankenstein stack is falling apart, how the underlying mechanics of SQL databases fail human nuance, and how ambient AI nervous systems are rising to take their place.
It's a fascinating time to be watching this space.
It really is. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. A new idea that builds entirely on everything we've discussed today about loyalty and nervous systems. Think about this. If your company is building a highly sensitive, ambient AI nervous system to perfectly anticipate and manage the emotional state of your customers, what happens when your enterprise customers start deploying their own ambient AI agents to negotiate and interact with you?
Oh, wow.
Right. Are we heading toward a future where one company's AI support agent is desperately trying to win the loyalty of another company's AI procurement agent? Who exactly is feeling the frustration and delight in that scenario? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.